Fox 13 storm coverage on your phone. The Fox Local mobile app. Download it now.
Escaping before Hurricane Milton makes landfall, there are evacuation orders for almost every county in our area.
Roads are going to be full today. As you can see, the airport is already busy before cancellations start. We've got team coverage to help you get prepared. Let's start with Dave Osterberg.
Laura, it's important to note that nothing significant weather-wise is going to happen today or tonight, or probably first thing tomorrow morning. Now, the time frame for landfall has been pushed back a few hours. We're looking at more like around midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., going into Thursday morning. So again, just gives us a little bit more time. Starting with Sky Tower radar, because we do have that rain across Alligator Alley. If you are traveling that way, evacuating to South Florida, don't be surprised to run into that. Overnight, Milton underwent what we call an eye wall replacement cycle. So it went from a Category 5 storm to a 4. It's a weakening. Another one replaces it, a larger one. But instead of losing that energy, you're not going to lose the energy. What the hurricane does with it is it disperses it outward, and the wind field expands. So you kind of trade wind in the core for more wind overall in the storm. Now that eye wall replacement cycle is complete, I'm looking at the storm to start to re-intensify, and it will likely become a Category 5 hurricane again today, so don't be surprised to hear that. I don't think it's there yet, but it's not far away with winds of 155 miles per hour this morning. It's coming into the west coast of Florida. It's pretty much locked in, guys. It's just the only question is exactly where will it make landfall, because that will be where we get that 10 to 15 foot storm surge. And they're into the south. So right now it's forecasted to move onshore at about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, Thursday morning, as a Category 3 storm, then move its way, work its way across the state, and then eventually go back out into the Atlantic. That will bring the worst weather in our area late Wednesday night, very early on Thursday morning. On and where the storm makes landfall, you have that 10 to 15 foot storm surge, the 5 to 10 inches of rain, and areas along the coast will have winds gusting over 100 miles per hour. We're going to unravel all of this for you. Valerie's here with me as well, kind of wrap it down into what county's going to get what. We'll do that in just a little bit, Jen. But again, no impacts today, so we have another day to prepare and slowly and patiently get out, right?
Yes, that's right. Patience is key, especially this morning. If you are evacuating, we are seeing delays along I-75 northbound as well as eastbound I-4. We'll start off here in Pasco County. These are your northbound lanes along I-75 approaching State Road 54. No accidents. This is just very busy traffic this morning as drivers are heeding the warning and getting out of town. This is eastbound I-4. I've been tracking slow-going traffic from County Line Road in toward Orlando. Adding to the heavy traffic is this crash. Looks like it's off to the shoulder, but it's still causing delays eastbound along I-4 approaching County Line Road. Good news is that all the Bay Area bridges are open if you're trying to access those. No delays on the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. Just keep in mind that FHP and FDOT will shut down the bridge once we see sustained winds of about 40 miles per hour. A couple travel notes. Tolls are suspended, so you don't have to worry about that if you are evacuating. Also, they have the emergency shoulder use in effect along eastbound I-4 from I-75 to Champions Gate. Drivers are also able to use the shoulder northbound along I-75 from I-4 to I-10. And we'll take a look at your Pasco and your Pinellas County roads coming up in the next report. Laura?
All right, good. Thank you, Jen. And you know this, no doubt. Traffic is going to be a huge issue all day today with so many people evacuating, pretty much everyone living in a mobile home, a camper, a manufactured home. They should strongly consider leaving. That's in addition to zones A, B, and C in the following counties: Pinellas, Manatee, Pasco, and Hernando. That's A, B, and C. While the mandatory evacuations in Hillsborough and Sarasota are for zones A and B. That's so far. And mandatory evacuations for Zone A in Citrus County, that starts at 8 o'clock this morning. Meantime, Tampa International Airport has announced they're suspending service this morning at 9 o'clock.
And they're not going to reopen until it's safe to do so. Our Kelly Cowan is there this morning with people trying to get out ahead of the storm. What's it look like there, Kel?
Good morning to you. Yeah, it's been pretty quiet here because we have so many cancellations on the board at this point. So anything that was scheduled for after 9 o'clock, they have canceled. And then some flights, just keep in mind, have been moved to an earlier time. Like, take a look at this Delta flight. It was supposed to take off at 9:40 this morning. Well, it was moved to 8:55 just so it could make it in before the airport officially shuts down. So keep that in mind if you are on one of these last flights today. If you have not received a cancellation notice already, make sure you know whether or not you're on a flight that may have changed time. But we are seeing that there have been some significant delays in arrivals as well. Just a quick peek at the arrivals over here. Pretty much everything canceled for the rest of the day, but there is one more coming in that we see in the morning, and then it appears there's a flight coming in around 1 this afternoon. Not sure if that's just a blip on here, just because it's coming in well after they say they are shutting down here. But a big reason why we have so many cancellations is because they're just not bringing any more aircraft in, as you can see here. And that caused a bit of a panic last night with passengers that were here and waiting on flights that were experiencing some pretty hefty delays. Some of the Southwest flights were pretty badly delayed, we understand, arriving here, which meant that those that were trying to get out last night, some of them did not leave until 1 this morning. Some people not willing to risk it. They decided to get in line for a rental car, and those lines were very, very long. So we do know that there have been some issues here, but it looks like everything running smoothly this morning as far as the flights go. Now, again, Tampa International shutting down at 9 o'clock this morning. Other local airports, you have PIE in Clearwater. They're closing after their final flight today. Orlando International plans to close at 8 tomorrow, so that could still be an option for people. Sarasota International, they're closing at 4 o'clock today. Tampa International saying that they're going to reopen as soon as it's safe to do so after a damage assessment, but no exact timeline on that. You are urged, again, to contact your airline if this is going to impact any of your upcoming flights. But many leaving right now are telling us that Helene was such a big eye-opener. They just don't want to risk staying put in a potential storm surge area with as much as we have in the forecast. Deciding to go, though, not always straightforward.
So my experience is that with a hurricane, you don't really know where it's going to go, because if you just go somewhere nearby, Georgia, North Carolina, it might cause more damage there. Being close sounds great because you can come back and repair your home, but in terms of saving your house, you just have to have a good plan to get back as soon as the storm is gone. Well, unless your house, of course, here is, sturdy enough that you can bunker down here. And that's really the best option. It's not the travel at all.
Yeah, many have elected to evacuate by road in the Bay Area. And as people heed those evacuation warnings, we've seen a lot of slowdowns on the major interstates, as well as sometimes just things at a dead stop. So keep that in mind, that you're going to be in very good company on the roads today if you are planning to leave. FDOT also encouraging the use of its emergency shoulder lanes. As Jen just explained, some parts of the state, including along I-4 and 75, will have those open for you. The roads, they're crowded. So are the gas stations. We saw many lines stretching around blocks yesterday at gas stations, but we also did see that you could still get gas at several locations. As we were making our way to Tampa International, in fact, this morning, we saw several gas stations that were open along Kennedy Boulevard. One thing that I've seen going on social media is that people are just polling their neighbors. There are a lot of different neighborhood groups that are really great for some of that information right now on where you can find certain supplies last minute, and any advice on where to find things like gas.
You brought that up, and it's an important point. And when the governor spoke yesterday, he said there is plenty of fuel. I mean, some of these pumps may be running out because we're all just filling up our tanks. But fuel is here, it's coming in, and there is plenty of fuel, and they will refill those tanks. All right, Kel. Thank you. Good point.
That's right. Yeah.
See you.
All right, it's 7:09 now, and Manatee and Sarasota counties could well get the worst of this hurricane. And that could mean historically high storm surge and damaging wind. Fox 13's Matthew McClellan is there for us this morning. And Matt, it looks like they did the best they could to get rid of that debris, but it sounds like it's going to have to be what it is now.
Yeah, and to really fully grasp the threat that this area is under, you just have to look at the damage left behind by Helene, which in comparison is going to be a smaller storm. So this home, we were just getting a first look at some of these places for ourselves. I know we've had crews out here, but like this place, you see where the posts are over here to the left. This is where this house was originally situated. Funny, the mailbox is still standing, but the home was lifted with this storm surge and pushed back off the roadway and then turned 30 degrees counterclockwise. Really just goes to show the power of storm surge, which of course there's way more of that in store for us in the coming hours. It is desolate here in Bradenton Beach, really a ghost town, and for a lot of folks like what we were showing you live here, there's just not a lot left to board up. Everything is I won't say everything, but a lot of things are just in shambles here. The problem is going to be this outstanding debris we've been showing you. Manatee County extending its evacuation alerts, now including zones A, B, and C, as well as all manufactured and mobile homes. Sarasota County is calling for evacuation levels of A and B, possibly C if the storm surge threat increases. Both counties say they saw devastating damage from Helene and their coastal communities like where we are. On Anna Maria Island Monday, we saw trucks back out there trying to pick up as much debris as possible. Water and power and sewer service to the Manatee County Barrier Island, those are going to be shut off this morning. The Holmes Beach City Hall and Police Department, they spent Monday moving equipment, important equipment and documents out of their city buildings. And in neighborhoods near Sarasota's Pinecraft community, Eric Schlebach and his sons on Monday, they were securing what they could. 2 months ago, this area that we're going to show you flooded with Tropical Storm Debbie.
Just preparing, putting loose stuff away, and hopefully the winds don't take it away. It's a resilient neighborhood. There's good people everywhere. The community really came together, and we felt it. A lot of the neighbors felt it. So whatever happens will happen, but we can still come together and try and rebuild or just move forward, hopefully without minimal damage.
And that is the hope echoed by so many people across this area this morning. Evacuation centers in Sarasota County, those are going to open today at 10 a.m. And in Manatee County, where we are, emergency shelters are now open at schools in Palmetto, Bradenton, Mayaca City, Parrish, and Lakewood Ranch. And back out here live, Laura, on Bradenton Beach, it is ominously quiet here. Every few minutes we'll see a truck come through on Gulf Road. Folks picking up the debris. These are city and county crews doing what they can in these last hours to try and minimize the risks here, because as we've been saying throughout the morning, it's the storm surge and the hurricane force winds, but also this lingering debris that could become projectiles, could be carried away in the water. It's going to be a mess.
Sadly, as Charlie pointed out yesterday, he was at Anna Maria. The vast majority of people in evacuation zone A aren't there anyway. It's going to be critical now for groups B and C, it sounds like.
Exactly, yeah, those later groups, and we're going to be staying in touch with both counties here, seeing any updates they may have. Things are going to begin moving very quickly, even though, as we heard from Dave, we won't see those big impacts today or early tomorrow. Those preparations are still very much underway, and we'll be ramping up today.
All right, Matt McClellan, live for us this morning in Manatee County. Thank you, Matt. And our inland counties are going to feel Milton as well. Polk County has activated its emergency operations center. Officials are warning people there to prepare for localized flooding, strong winds that can damage homes, and downed power lines and tree limbs blocking roads. Widespread power outages are anticipated to last for days. Lakeland Electric's crews are pre-staged ahead of the storm. They have over 100 linemen ready to respond.
We start with all the critical feeders and customers that we have. Those are, the municipal, the utility customers to make sure that we have powers, that we can restore power. Hospitals, fire stations, police stations, nursing homes, those types of facilities.
19 shelters, including pet-friendly shelters and special needs shelters, are open across Polk County today. In total, they have the capacity to house 38,000 people. Sandbag sites from Lakeland to Kissimmee will also be open today. That's from 8 a.m. to noon.
And don't forget, you can find everything you need to know at our website. That's fox13news.com. There's a county-by-county list of evacuation orders, sandbag locations, shelters, and a whole lot more. That website, again, is fox13news.com. And we'll be right back.
And now, Fox 13 meteorologist Dave Osterberg with your Sky Tower radar forecast.
7:17 on this Tuesday morning, and walking out the door in the Tampa Bay area, it's pretty quiet. As you go south, we do have some rain, and I wanted to point that out for those of you who may be evacuating to the south, which is typically not the way we go, but maybe you're heading down into South Florida. Let's put up our weather computer there, and you can see it for you. The rain down along Alligator Alleys around Bonita Springs and Naples, kind of working its way over to Fort Lauderdale. If you are evacuating that way, there is a little bit of rain this morning, not that big a deal. Here's the wide view. And if you look at Milton, Milton's a little bit larger in size this morning because it underwent what we call an eye wall replacement cycle last night, which it had that very small pinhole eye, and then it collapsed upon itself with that very intense pressure, and it's created itself a new eye. And you can see it on the satellite, and I would anticipate over the next several hours that the eye will clear out again. Now, initially, when you're talking about an eye wall replacement cycle, it is a weakening process, and you'll see the storm drop a category, which is what it did. It went from category 5 down to category 4 with winds of 155 miles per hour. But now, just looking at the way that eye is completely structured itself back together again and larger, you're going to start to see that become cloud-free, and you're going to start to see this storm re-intensify. So it will likely go back into a Category 5 storm. It's not feeling that wind shear, which will hopefully weaken it just a little bit before landfall. And I say it like that because even if this storm weakens a little bit, it is still expected to be a major hurricane at landfall. But that wind shear is sitting just to the north of it, waiting for it to take that turn. Now moving east-northeast at about 12 miles per hour, winds of 155. Likely goes up to Category 5 before dropping back down to 4, and then eventually 3 around landfall. You see how tight, really tight that cone is now, really from Citrus County down to Fort Myers, but the models are even tighter than that, and the majority of those pinpointing a landfall somewhere in the Tampa Bay area, whether it's 20-30 miles north here or 20-30 miles to the south. So for more on that, more on the impacts that we can expect, some preliminary numbers, let me toss it over to Valerie Mills.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And really, as we're narrowing in on that potential landfall, the location really is key. And we're talking about a couple of miles making a big difference in who ends up seeing really the worst of this storm surge. The impacts are going to extend all across the coast, inland. We're even talking parts of the East Coast feeling some effects as this kind of crosses the peninsula. But you can see where these model runs have really continued to narrow in right across our Tampa Bay area. We've got a couple of outliers that are taking it just to the north, and then a clump of models that are kind of right along and to the south of Hillsborough, Pinellas areas. So, of course, that is one of those things that we're really focusing in on as we get closer to the time frame of when that landfall will occur. We're talking areas right along and to the south of the eye wall are where we're anticipating the absolute maximum of the storm surge with this storm. And, of course, if we get that ending up right on the north side of Tampa Bay, all of that storm surge is going to funnel right into Hillsborough, Tampa Bay areas, and really kind of just get stuck in there once we get that onshore flow going. So that would be the worst case scenario for us. And of course, some of those models taking that trend to the south, which would be a really tough situation for areas around Sarasota, even further south into Fort Myers area, depending on where that sets up. So our latest look at our watches and warnings, we've got that hurricane warning that runs from Suwannee down to Bonita Springs, and then we've got some of those tropical storm warnings that extend across parts of the Big Bend, south of Bonita Springs, Everglades City areas as well. And we have seen those watches and advisories now include more of the East Coast, as this is really going to be an impactful storm even as we get inland. That's going to be a big difference from Helene, which was a big focus along our coastal communities. And so storm surge is our main concern with this storm. But then once it starts to push on shore, we're going to be talking about those tropical hurricane force winds extending pretty far inland as well, and the rain that's going to come down is going to cause some fresh water flooding as well. So we take these impacts well away from the coast with Milton, and we're looking at our rainfall accumulations, and you can kind of see the general area where we're looking at the highest rainfall totals. Of course, that's going to slightly change just depending on where Milton makes that landfall, but we are talking about the potential really for 5 to 10 inches of rain, possibly some of those getting closer to that that foot range where we see some of these brighter yellow colors. And then those rain totals, they're going to taper down, but still on the high side as we get further more to the south, away from where that direct landfall will be. We're still talking 4 to 8 inches there. And even down to the southeast coast areas around Miami, Fort Lauderdale, a couple of inches of rain will be coming down for them as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the big picture here with our Fox model. There's a look at where Milton is now. We do expect, as Dave was just mentioning, some weakening as it kind of moves through a less favorable environment today into tomorrow. And so that is going to kind of overall weaken the strength of this storm, but not make a big impact on the overall things that we are going to see here around our area. We're still talking a major storm making landfall, and even as it weakens, the wind field is going to spread out just a bit. So that means more of our coast is going to feel the influence of the winds as well as the storm surge. So this is a look Wednesday afternoon. We are seeing that just to the southwest, and that's kind of the trend that we have been seeing, is a slower overall speed of this storm. So this is paused here Wednesday 10 o'clock. That's kind of the time frame where our Fox model and a lot of other models have jumping on board with this later look of when this comes on shore. So we're really looking now at the early Thursday morning hours for this to cross, and then look at all of the heavy rain and the winds that are going to be moving even up into areas around Daytona, Jacksonville, St. Augustine, and through the day on Thursday, we continue to kind of watch that cross the state. And with that, the winds are going to be packing quite a punch. So as far as the timing on those, it's really into the late morning Wednesday afternoon time frame where we start to see these 40-50 mile per hour gusts move in for the coast. But look at how that progresses as we head through the later evening hours on Wednesday. That's when we start to see the storm approaching from the south and west. That's where we're starting to see those up to 80 mile per hour gusts possible around Clearwater, St. Pete, up to 70 for Tampa, and even look inland, 40-50 mile per hour gusts from Polk down to DeSoto, Highlands counties. And then as we get later Wednesday night, that's when we likely start to see the worst of the potential storm surge. And look at those winds up to 100 miles per hour up and down the coast, 60 to 70 as we get inland, and then even into our Thursday morning. We're going to continue to see those 70, 80 mile per hour gusts around Tampa, even stronger along our coastal communities. And so it'll take a little bit of time for those winds to wind down as we head through the day on Thursday. So plan on those impacts to start as we head through the morning hours Wednesday, worsening by Wednesday night and into early Thursday. We expect that storm to come on shore. For today, 82, mostly cloudy, on and off rain. Then we look ahead to tomorrow and Thursday as we are expecting that landfall from Milton. Hey, Jen, how are things looking out there this morning?
Oh, we are tracking heavy traffic this morning. A lot of people are heeding the warnings. They're getting out of town and they're using I-75 and I-4. So we'll start eastbound along I-4. Typically, we're talking about volume on the westbound side, but traffic is eastbound, as you can see here. Steady stream of headlights approaching US 27. It remains that way as you head eastbound all the way through Orlando. Travel times along northbound I-75 are definitely in the red, and it's been like that since the start of Good Day Tampa Bay. And it's wild to see it, but traffic is using the shoulder because they are allowed to. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but that's giving drivers an extra travel lane northbound along I-75 as they make their way out of Pasco County, approaching State Road 54. Checking on the Bay Area bridges, they are in the clear. Sunshine Skyway Bridge is open. Crews won't shut that down until we reach sustained winds of 40 miles per hour. And yes, tolls are suspended by order of the governor, so you don't have to worry about paying any tolls as you try to exit out of the Bay Area. Talked about the emergency shoulder use eastbound along I-4 from I-75 to Champions Gate. You can also use the shoulder northbound along I-75 from I-4 to I-10. Uber offering free rides to the shelters with the promo code Milton Relief. Hart is offering free rides to the shelters until they suspend their service at 8 p.m. PSTA also doing the same thing, free rides to the shelters until they suspend service at 2 p.m. Laura, Russell?
Thanks, Jen.
Jen, thank you. You know, a lot of people have spent the last week or two cleaning up from Hurricane Helene. Trash and debris line the streets in so many places.
And with Hurricane Milton heading this way, that junk can become harmful projectiles. Charlie tells us how these can affect the efforts going forward. Hey.
When I tell you, you know, it's so sad. You guys in that lead use words junk, trash, and debris, and really what it is, it's people's lifetime of dreams, and it's the furniture that they saved up for, and it's the life's worth of belongings. It's who we are, right? Our stuff. becomes who we are and what we value and what we work hard to be able to buy. And yes, it ended up at the end of the road because of Hurricane Helene. And now that mass of material could get swept up in 100-mile-an-hour plus winds. You can only imagine the damage that's going to do. And the worry of the winds is something shattering your window. Well, imagine all of those objects becoming fuel in this Hurricane Milton, and that's the worry. That's obviously why crews are working so difficultly and so urgently to clean as much of that up as possible. So I'm at Pinellas County Solid Waste Facility, and yesterday at this time, there was a long line of trucks. In fact, we are at the public entrance now. I'm at the corner of 34th Street North and 114th Avenue North in Pinellas County. This is open to the public 24/7. Now, they'll shut down when conditions worsen and it's unsafe to be here. But you do have a few hours. If you're watching right now and you've got the ability, you got a truck or a trailer, and you can load up some debris and get it here, you are welcome to come do that here if you are a Pinellas County resident. You see, there's no one in line right now. No one here. Hopefully that means everybody who could do it did it yesterday, and now they're making the rest of their finalized hurricane preparation plans. But as of 11 hours ago, the Florida Department of Transportation said they'd already seen 500 people through here, 200 plus dump trucks, 787 truck loads and counting. Florida Department of Transportation and their contractors, the Florida Highway Patrol, the Florida State Guard, the Florida National Guard, Swift Mud, and many other partners, they say, have come together to help clear as much debris as possible in Pinellas County. And again, anyone can bring storm debris here to the Pinellas County Solid Waste Disposal Facility. And you got to come in and now there's signs, I'll tell you, there's signs out there that says do not enter, authorized vehicles only. It's a little confusing, but in the haste, they didn't set up signs that says welcome to the public. So you just know if you're coming in 34th Street, and here's a truck right now, Sunrise Landscape, bringing some of their yard waste here to get rid of. It's 34th Street North and 114th Avenue North. And again, they've also opened a new debris site in St. Petersburg for residents and private haulers, 72nd Street North, across from Azalea Park. It's now open as well. But this has been a steady stream, Russell and Laura, trucks like this. And look you look poking out there. Again, someone's front door, someone's cushions for a couch. Like, people's livelihoods. It breaks my heart to see truckloads of that to begin with, but now we got to get rid of it before Hurricane Milton is on our doorstep, and we know it's coming.
Okay. Thanks. Talk later, okay?
Yep.
Well, the barrier islands could get the brunt of this thing.
And Dave has been telling us all morning there is the potential for 10 to 15 feet in some areas. Fox 13's Regina Gonzalez is in Pinellas County for us. Good morning to you, Regina.
Laura, Russell, good morning to you. Yeah, here in Pinellas County, ever since yesterday, there have been mandatory evacuations in effect for people living in zones A, B, and C. And that also includes people who are in hospitals and assisted living facilities. So actually within the hour, we are expecting an update from the president and CEO of Advent Health North Pinellas here in Tarpon Springs. I actually just went in to use the restroom recently, and the security guards told me that everybody is basically gone. So we'll have more information on that in just a bit. But the barrier islands is going to be closed to everyone starting at 7 p.m. tonight. Sheriff Bob Gualtieri says that right now, for the rest of the day until 7, they are only open to residents, business owners, debris operators, and rideshare drivers helping people evacuate. Meanwhile, I know Charlie was just touching on this, but yesterday it was just quite a sight. You saw convoys of garbage trucks seen as local and state crews along with private contractors have been working around the clock to remove Helene debris. But county officials say realistically at this point, with the millions of cubic yards that has been seen, they won't be able to move it all by the time Milton arrives.
I'm very concerned as well. We've got homes that are structurally unsound that are going to come down, and this next one will have even more debris. But there's no place on the island that's safe. You've got to get off the island, and it is a factor of water and this time wind with all the debris.
Now, county officials are asking before you evacuate, secure any debris that may still be left outside your home or business. You could put a tarp on it, bungee cord it, put it in a garage or somewhere enclosed. They also advise you to turn off your power. And this is so important. Move any electric vehicles, e-bikes or golf carts out of the storm surge area if you are able to. It was so heartbreaking to see some of the homes that literally went on fire because electric vehicles were getting that water damage and then exploded. We do know that the FEMA administrator, Deanne Criswell, she was in St. Pete last night meeting with Mayor Ken Welch. They both told our crews that they are in touch with the White House and are actively working to mobilize federal response to this region as Milton approaches.
All right, Regina Gonzalez, live for us this morning. Regina, thank you. And here's a suggestion. If you need anything from Publix, get it today. The supermarket chain is closing nearly 500 locations across the state at closing time. Now, those hours are going to vary. Publix will not be open tomorrow.
7:33, a lot of us are making those last-minute preps ahead of the hurricane, but that window is closing quickly, so get it done. Hillsborough Sheriff Chad Chronister joins us this morning to get us up to speed on where his agency is on all of this. Sheriff, good morning.
Good morning. There's no doubt this cone of uncertainty has shrunk, and we're going to get the brunt of this storm. And like Dave Osterberg has been saying, the good news is we have a little longer because the storm slowed down to get prepared.
Dave's talking. It looks like late tomorrow night and into Thursday morning is landfall. What's your best advice at this point to folks as we head into this?
That there's still plenty of time to get prepared. We have a little more than 24 hours, so go get those essential items. If you need fuel, get fuel. And if you need to relocate your family because you're in evacuation zones A and B, please do so. If you have to go to a hotel, if you have to go to a friend's house, a family's house, and worst case scenario, shelter. We have over 2,000 people in shelters. The good news is, Russell, is that people are heeding the advice. Yesterday afternoon, when we gave the evacuation order, we were up in the helicopter. We see that people are taking advantage and they are evacuating. We even opened up the emergency lanes to help get more traffic outside of the evacuation zone. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm very happy. We've been in the evacuation zones. We have a heavy patrol presence there. We're providing security at the shelters, at the sandbag locations, along with staging our strategic items that we're going to need. Once the wind shear got worse and the storm surge got worse and the 5 to 10 inches of rain that were expected got worse, we have to restage our items, our aviation unit, our marine unit, our amphibious vehicles. So we have to, I guess, respond a little bit too, depending on now this track of the storm. And we're just asking our community to do the same.
Inevitably, though, there will be people who don't leave. They will stay and they will try to ride this out, and they're going to call for help. I was talking to one of your dispatchers the other night, and there were some heartbreaking phone calls from people saying, why can't you come get me? And at some point, you just can't, right?
And this is going to be the biggest difference between Hurricane Helene. There was never sustained winds more than 25 miles per hour. 40 miles per hour is usually the cutoff. So we never had to suspend service. We were out, we worked through the night, we got the individuals. That's why you saw so many rescues. This is going to be different with 130 mile to 35 mile per hour winds, that 10 to 15 feet storm surge. It's going to be too unsafe. And you're exactly right. It's going to be really bad for first responders because it's a sinking feeling and we want to go help individuals. But it's going to be even worse for that individual who calls for help for them and their loved ones, and it's not coming.
Yeah. Sheriff, we've never seen anything like this one. Are we ready?
We are ready. And I think the community's responding appropriately. Again, I'm not sitting here preaching doom and gloom because I think people are listening. I can see the traffic. I see the lines at the grocery store and at the gas stations. We're prepared. We are prepared for this. In 33 years, we've never saw the flooding that we've seen. I get it. It's been 103 years. It was when we trained, and in all 33 years that I've been here, it's never been if, it's been when. So we're ready to go. And if the community's a good partner and they listen, yes, you're going to be inconvenienced. Yes, you're going to be uncomfortable when we lose electric, but you'll be.
Sheriff Chad Chronister, we'll talk to you along the way. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.
You too. Now, remember, if you lose power during the storm, several local radio stations will be carrying our newscast. You can listen to our hurricane coverage on 102.5 The Bone, 97X, and 101.5 The Vibe.
Well, it is inevitable with a storm like this. There will be power outages, and a lot of them, too. Let's get to Mary Lou Carn from TECO. She joins us now to talk about it. Mary Lou, thank you so much for being with us. I know we talked to you yesterday, and there were a lot of preps going on. What do the next 24 hours look like for you?
Good morning. We know this is a stressful time for our community, and we are doing everything we can to prepare for a safe restoration. We've been working around the clock since this weekend to prepare, and we've been able to secure 4,000 utility workers and growing from as far away as Minnesota, Missouri, and Texas, who are positioning themselves outside the projected path for Hurricane Milton and will be ready to move in as soon as it is safe to do so.
And what does that look like? What are the parameters for you guys to be able to get in the zone and start to get to work?
Well, we need the storm to pass by and then the winds to die down to an acceptable level. We follow the path and the same process as emergency workers. So when emergency workers are able to move in, we are able to follow in with them and begin to assess the damage.
That's good to know. Do you have enough staffing between Helene and now Milton?
Yes, we do. We have a lot of resources available. Like I mentioned, we've been able to secure at least a growing number of 4,000 utility workers to come in and assist us. Plus, we have our local crews and contractors that are standing by ready to work around the clock to restore power.
And talk about what these guys are going through, too. I mean, I know with Helene, some of these linemen were working 16-hour days.
Yes, so we run 2 16-hour shifts when we are restoring power. So they are very long days for our crew members, and they've had a couple days to recover since Hurricane Helene. And so they live. This is what our company lives for. We practice this all year long. We prepare every year, all year for these storms, and we are ready to respond.
I have to say the power restorations after Helene were nothing short of impressive. So well done you. Thank you guys for what you do. My last question to you is, how will you prioritize the order of the restoration of power?
So whenever we have a power interruption, we follow a priority restoration approach that helps the community recover more quickly. So the first thing we need to do is check our own resources. We ensure that our power plants and our transmission lines are safe and in working order. Then we begin to restore hospitals, police stations, fire departments, things that are necessary for safety and essential services. Then after those are restored, we begin to work on supermarkets and building supply stores, public services, communication providers, so we can start talking to customers and customers can start getting needed essentials. And then after that, we work on restoring the greatest number of people in the shortest amount of time. So we work the damage from the biggest impact on down until everyone is restored.
God, Mary Lou, I have to tell you, it sounds like a military operation.
It's a well-oiled machine, yes.
When I tell you what, that gives us at least a little bit of comfort that you guys can get in there and you know what you're doing when the time comes. So y'all be safe. I'm sure we'll be talking to you as we move forward over the next 24 and 48 hours. But in the meantime, thank y'all for what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, let's get back over to you, Dave.
Yeah, I know the governor's getting ready to hopefully talk in just a few minutes, give us an update from the state level. Until he does, though, let's get into what's happening, of course, with the storm itself. Milton did weaken from a Category 5 into a Category 4 storm. And with that happening overnight, that was what we call an eye wall replacement cycle. They're very normal in major hurricanes. The pressure within the storm. Stevie, I can walk to the wall, right? Okay, I'm going to walk to the wall and kind of show it. It's just easier if I kind of put my finger on it. The pressure within the storm right in the center was extreme. And what will happen is the storm or the eye wall just kind of collapses upon itself. And it creates another eye wall, which is typically a little bit larger. And you don't... the storm drops, 1 category, 20-mile-per-hour winds, which it did. Now, those winds and that energy just don't go away. They just redistribute it out. So what happens when you get an eye wall replacement cycle is typically the wind field expands and it goes out further. And by the time Milton's making landfall, which, oh, by the way, may not be until midnight tomorrow night going into Thursday morning, pushing it back a few hours. So as the storm, again, is going to be making landfall at that point, that's when we expect, of course, the largest storm surge to occur. Look, and you can see, look at the convection wrapped around this storm. At the very beginning of this little animation, I was kind of, but now look at it. It's structured again well. It's moving up toward the northeast. It will likely regain some of its strength that it lost. Will it be as strong as it was yesterday? Hopefully not. Don't know. But it will strengthen a little bit more, especially as I think it kind of moves away from the Yucatan Peninsula, because even though the core is offshore, some of the clouds are being impacted by the Yucatan itself. Moving northeastward, it will continue that path and then eventually head into the west coast of Florida. Now, a couple of things the Hurricane Center has done. They've slowed down the movement of this storm and the landfall to maybe very, very early on Tuesday morning. But they also note this, and the fact that this is going to be, or it's forecasted to be, a major hurricane upon landfall with winds of about 125 miles per hour. And yes, and now that cone continues to condense and condense and condense, as do the computer models as well. So this is a Central Florida problem, and it's going to work its way right across the state as well. Hurricane warnings are out, of course, but not only along the coast, but those inland locations, Polk, Hardy, DeSoto, Highlands County, you folks could get those hurricane-force wind gusts as well. Not until overnight. The worst of this storm is going to come through overnight tomorrow and into Thursday morning. Earlier, a couple of days ago, it looked like it would be during the day on Wednesday. Not so. This is going to be Wednesday night and early Thursday morning. Where the storm makes landfall, that 10 to 15-foot storm surge is key. It is huge. And on and about maybe 20 to 30 miles south of where the storm makes landfall is where you're going to have the biggest impact in terms of storm surge. And that will have to be tweaked as we get a little bit closer. That's why Hurricane Center put that broad 10 to 15-foot storm surge to get everybody ready and get them out. So we'll have more coming up, of course, on Milton in just a couple of minutes. But now the governor is speaking.
We've been at a level 1 really for 2 weeks now with both of these storms. I'm joined by Kevin Guthrie, Jared Perdue, Dave Kerner, General John Haas. Hurricane Milton is expected to make landfall on the west coast of Florida sometime between Wednesday evening and early Thursday morning. The storm has moved a little bit slower than initially projected. But remember, do not get wedded to the cone. Do not get wedded to where the projected landfall is. I think the 5 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center had it somewhere in the Bradenton Beach area in Manatee County. You could have a wobble either way. And I think one of the things that's been good is a lot of those folks down in Southwest Florida, like in Lee County and Charlotte, they're used to seeing the wobble end up going south. And so you've had a lot of people that have evacuated from some of those barrier islands. So just know it's possible that it could hit north of Tampa Bay, it could hit Tampa Bay, it could hit south of Tampa Bay somewhere in Southwest Florida. But wherever it makes landfall, there's going to be impacts far beyond what the cone actually shows. Now, we have made, as I mentioned yesterday, pre-landfall declaration requests from FEMA. Federal government has approved a portion of our request. There are going to be landfall requests for major disaster declaration and individual assistance, and we anticipate those being approved as well. We have 51 counties currently under a state of emergency. As of the 5 a.m. advisory, Hurricane Milton is still a major hurricane. It is no longer a Category 5, but it potentially could strengthen back to that as it makes its approach to the state of Florida. Maximum sustained winds are in excess of 150 miles an hour. Now, their forecasts do call for it to weaken before it gets to landfall, and maybe that's true. Let's hope it's true. Maybe it's not, but even if it does weaken, you're still looking at a major hurricane. It is going to have really, really significant impacts. Right now, it's located about 560 miles southwest of Tampa. Storm surge warning has been issued for the Florida Gulf Coast from mainland Monroe County northward to the Dixie-Levy County line, with storm surge watches in effect for Nassau County to Brevard Indian River County line, including the St. Johns River. 10 to 15 feet peak storm surge is forecast for the Pasco Pinellas County line, all the way down into the area where you have Manatee and Sarasota. 5 to 10 peak storm surge is forecast from Yankeetown southward, and then from Englewood southward to Bonita Beach, including Charlotte Harbor. So that almost entire west coast of the Florida Peninsula has the potential to have really, really significant storm surge. And when you're talking about 10 to 15 feet, that's obviously major, but we saw what even 4 feet did with Hurricane Helene in some of these communities. And so this is something that's really, really significant. There's hurricane warning in effect for Levy, Marion, Citrus, Sumter, Lake, Seminole, Hernando, Orange, Pasco, Pinellas, Hillsborough, Polk, Osceola, Manatee, Hardy, Highlands, Sarasota, DeSoto, Charlotte, and Lee counties, and then tropical storm warning in coastal Franklin, coastal Wakulla, coastal Jefferson, Taylor, Sewanee, Lafayette, Dixie, Gilchrist, Western Columbia, Western Alachua, Okeechobee, Glades, Hendry, Collier, Monroe, including the Florida Keys and the Dry Tortugas. We have a hurricane watch for Nassau, Duval, Clay, St. John's, Putnam, Flagler, Volusia, Brevard, Indian River, Okeechobee, Glades, Hendry, Collier, Dry Tortugas, and then a tropical storm watch Inland, Jefferson, Madison, Hamilton, Eastern Columbia, Baker, Union, Bradford, Eastern Alachua, St. Lucie, Martin, Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade. So basically, the entire peninsula portion of Florida is under some type of either a watch or a warning. The Florida Division of Emergency Management is actively addressing storm-related resource requests. We are currently fulfilling close to 1,000 missions to support our local communities. That includes everything from tiger dams and generators to staff support, as well as food and water and tarps. We've also deployed more than 11,000 feet of flood protection systems, and we're prioritizing critical infrastructure like hospitals, wastewater treatment facilities, and electrical infrastructure. We've also done things like generators to support special needs sheltering operations. Of course, Starlink Internet. All counties have access to Starlink Internet devices and can use those as they see fit. More than 350 ambulances and more than 30 paratransits are in operation. We also have another 144 in staging that can be used if the need arises. The state of Florida is amassing fuel reserves ahead of Milton and staging it to be utilized as needed. We have been dispatching fuel over the past 24 hours as gas stations have run out. So we currently have 268,000 gallons of diesel, 110,000 gallons of gasoline. Those numbers are less than what they were 24 hours ago because we've put a lot in, but we have an additional 1.2 million gallons of both diesel and gasoline that is currently en route to the state of Florida. Now, there is no fuel shortage. Fuel continues to arrive in the state of Florida by port and what we're doing to bring it in on the ground. But lines at gas stations have been long. Gas stations are running out quicker than they otherwise would. And so that is causing the state of Florida to help assist with the mission to be able to get fuel to the gas stations so that Floridians have access. So last night, 27 fuel trucks were escorted by the Florida Highway Patrol to deliver fuel to stations in the anticipated impact area. We're also working with fuel companies such as Racetrack, Wawa, Shell, and Walmart to ensure fuel trucks are working 24/7 to keep fuel delivered as it comes into our ports. Now, Port of Tampa, for example, our Gulf Coast ports are not going to be receiving ships at this point, per the Coast Guard. They do have a lot of fuel that's on hand, and the dockside operations will be continuing. We are assuming, doesn't mean it's going to happen, but we are assuming that there's going to be significant damage to the Port of Tampa, so we're operating as if there's going to be a significant interruption in their ability to receive fuel, and Kevin and his team are actively working to get around that so that we have the ability to continue bringing fuel into the state subsequent to the impacts from the storm. Have taken on this debris mission to supplement the local governments in areas like Pinellas and Manatee, which saw a lot of debris left over for Hurricane Helene. Continue, local officials, private contractors, continue the debris removal mission. Our folks are going to continue to work 24/7. Our executive order requires the landfills to be open 24/7. And in fact, we've had to even pry a couple of them open to make sure that not just the state trucks and the private vendors, but also private citizens are able to drop off debris. We want to get as much of the debris picked up as is possible. And as I noted, when we saw that there was a storm forming, we understood that there was a lot of debris on the ground. Some of the contractors work at different paces. This was not something that they were necessarily doing very quickly. So we took all state assets that were available throughout the state, took them off their normal missions, and surged them into these affected areas. We've now deployed over 300 dump trucks, and they are continuing to work 24/7. So we have had, just with Florida Department of Transportation, in the last 48 hours, they've removed 1,200 truckloads of debris from those hard-hit areas. That's almost 22,000 cubic yards. That is the equivalent, moving in 48 hours with our state asset, than what any single private contractor has been able to do in the entire time since Hurricane Helene. So we appreciate what they're doing. They've been working around the clock, and we want to continue that all day today. It's going to continue and into tomorrow until it's no longer safe to do so. The Florida National Guard, Florida State Guard, additional FDOT personnel, and Florida Highway Patrol are all involved not only in the debris removal, but in the larger hurricane preparation and response. We will have, before landfall, 8,000 National Guard for the state of Florida that will be activated. We have already on hand 34 different search and rescue aircraft. We've never had this many resources prior to a storm. We have had what's called EMAC requests that get sent out to other states, and we've had a tremendous response from other states. Just like we responded to North Carolina when they needed, states have come to Florida's aid. And so I just want to thank the states that have stepped up and helped us, whether it's a Chinook helicopter, whether it's some search and rescue personnel, you name it. We've had a number of states that have stepped up to help us. Linemen and power restoration resources are being marshaled in advance of the storm, as is our standard practice. We now have in excess of 37,000 linemen that are either in or en route to the state of Florida. As most people know, Hurricane Helene left a lot of damage in some of our neighboring states, and there have been a lot of linemen surged into those states still working on major power restoration. So some of these linemen are coming into Florida from as far away as California. So I know people like to see the site of the linemen staging coming on I-10 to get into the state of Florida, and you should be thankful for that. But just know some of them have traveled a long way to be able to be here and to be able to help get the power back on. We are hoping that number ends up in excess of 40,000. So that'd be significantly more than what we had staged for Helene, which was a very rapid restoration. Of course, this storm could present much different challenges. I would like to say that the electrical co-ops, they have staged 4,200 linemen, and their goal is to have 7,500 just themselves between these co-ops by landfall. And to put that in perspective, I think 5 years ago, I don't think the co-ops had anybody that would come in for mutual aid. So they've really stepped up and done a good job. And obviously, FP&L's got a lot of people. Duke, I know TCO has some. I think they're probably going to do some more as well. But everybody is coming together to do what they can to be ready for this potentially very complicated power restoration mission subsequent to the landing of Hurricane Milton. The state of Florida has also assisted in the evacuation of 202 healthcare facilities that are in the potential path of the storm. And I want to thank everybody that's been involved in that. Very difficult set of circumstances when you're talking about evacuating people out of healthcare facilities. So as we prepare for Hurricane Milton, we are also mindful that we have a lot of Floridians that are still reeling from Hurricane Helene. That's why we launched the Florida Disaster Fund, so that Floridians and others could make donations so that that money can go to help with relief efforts for Helene. This is a private fund. The donations are tax deductible. We are opening it also for Hurricane Milton. After Hurricane Ian, for example, the Florida Disaster Fund raised and distributed over $63 million to help Floridians. This thing helped rebuild homes. It helped providing food and supplies. It helped to aid small businesses. It helped to supplement incomes for teachers and first responders who were having to go perform their duties while they were still suffering from the impacts of the storm. And I've directed Volunteer Florida to keep the fund activated. We want to continue to do what we can. So far, almost $4 million has been raised for the victims of Hurricane Helene. Thanks for everybody who's done it. We've had tremendous donations from Lennar, Wells Fargo, Walmart, and Publix, but we're accepting donations in any amount that you can do. So please, if you want to do that, you can go to floridadisasterfund.org, floridadisasterfund.org. You can also text disaster to 20222 if you want to donate via text message. So we are closing in on less than 48 hours away from the projected landfall of major Hurricane Milton. Now's the time to execute your plan. You do have time to get to a shelter. You have time to evacuate further than that if that's what you want, but that time is running out. As we get into Wednesday, there's no guarantee what the weather's going to be like starting Wednesday morning. You may have a window where it may be safe, but you may not. So use today as your day to finalize and execute the plan that is going to protect you and your family. Know your evacuation zone. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people are now quite familiar with their evacuation zone, given what we've gone through in recent weeks. But if you have questions about that, you can visit floridadisaster.org/know to determine if you live in an evacuation zone. And again, a lot of the places on the west coast of Florida that did receive significant storm surge for Hurricane Helene is projected to have even more storm surge from Hurricane Milton. Evacuations were in effect starting yesterday, and those are ongoing. Mandatory evacuations have been issued for portions of the following: Charlotte, Citrus, Collier, Hernando, Hillsborough, Lee, Manatee, Pasco, Pinellas, Sarasota, and Volusia counties. Of course, we suspended the tolls along the evacuation routes, and the Florida Department of Transportation has opened roadway shoulders as necessary to facilitate evacuations and ease congestion on both I-4 and I-75. Yesterday saw a lot of people on the road. Particularly, those are roads that on rush hour are very crowded anyways. It was about 150% more than what we would typically have on roads like I-75. That moves slow. The average was about 20 miles an hour. That resolved at about 1 a.m. Traffic resumed to normal flow, but we're already seeing traffic get heavier today. So just be prepared for that. FDOT is using all the resources to be able to create as much flow as possible, but there's an inordinate number of people that are on the road, knowing that it's going to be probably for most of today slower than normal. Just keep in mind, you do not have to get on the interstate and go far away. The shelters are open in all of these counties now. You can evacuate tens of miles. You do not have to evacuate hundreds of miles. Of course, it's your choice what you want to do, but there are options. And I know there's a lot of folks, particularly a lot of elderly, They may not want to get on the road on these interstates in normal circumstances, but certainly in circumstances where they're really going to be jammed, you do have options. And that is not something, when you hear evacuate, don't think you've got to get on the interstate and outrun the storm. You can find safe places on higher ground, hunker down, and then be able to go back to your home when the storm passes. We also have emergency accommodation modules that are activated through Visit Florida, both Expedia and Priceline. If you want to access these modules, you can go to visitflorida.com/Priceline and then Expedia.com/Florida. We've also worked with the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association, and they are working with members to continue to offer reduced prices for hotel rooms on a distress rate for Floridians who are fleeing the storm, as well as waiving or reducing applicable pet fees. We have properties, the Rosen properties, Red Roof Inns, A-Lofts, La Quintas, Motel 6, Best Western, Holiday Inns. They're all on board to be able to do this and help Floridians when they're in need. So we appreciate you doing that. And again, having a storm.
Hearing from the governor, I think one of the most important things that he just said, and he reiterated that, yes, your particular gas station may be without fuel because there's been so many long lines of people trying to fill up with gas. There is plenty of fuel in this state, and they are refilling those tanks as quickly as they can.
And they're talking about linemen, 40,000. That would be huge for us if we could have that ready to go right when it's necessary. But it sounds like it's a well-oiled machine.
Sure is. Sure is.
All right. Now at 8, tracking Hurricane Milton.